Yeah, joining us right now to talk about it is National Security Analyst Lou Nescott Jr. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, we want to start with Syria. Many people out there wondering, is this an act of war by the U.S.?
No, it isn't. And I said that on Fox 61 this morning. It is not. It's actually somewhat consistent with President Obama's line that he drew in the sand concerning chemical weapons in Syria. So in many ways, this is a restatement of that position with President Trump ordering the strike yesterday.
Yeah, so speaking of that line that President Obama mentioned, why do you think Bashar al-Assad would take this approach? He seemed to be in the clear for the most part, having that deal with the U.S. and Russia and to get rid of those chemical stockpiles, and then this.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. Again, as I pointed out earlier this morning, this guy is isolated from the world community. Who are his friends? China, Russia, Iran. That's it. So he's interested in survival. He's also interested in cleansing ethnic enclaves in his country, and he does it with chemicals. That's a message that he's going to send, and quite frankly, if he continues to have access, as he very well may, to additional stockpiles, we can expect additional attacks. It does two things. It inflicts terror on the very people that he's trying to drive out, simply to say either die or leave. And secondly of all, it would almost be a challenge to the United States when you step back and think about it, because then the challenge is, okay, so you thought I used chemical weapons, I'll deny it publicly. What's your next move? Are you going to launch 59 more Tomahawk missiles at me? What's the end game here?
Right.
So in many ways, Assad is so isolated and cut off from the world community that he really doesn't care.
How does the rest of the world view the U.S.'s actions last night?
You know, that's a great question. I mean, I think you see where people were lining up. Most of the world, I think, would understand it. We're getting into a conversation now with our lawmakers here in Connecticut and elsewhere, and we'll begin to see repercussions about further actions and authorizations. That's another conversation, but right now I think the immediate response is, yeah, okay, fine, we're willing to give a hearing to the United States' use of Tomahawk weapons, missiles to at least hit some air, in this case, an airfield in Syria. So.
And we have about a minute left, so we definitely want to talk about what's happening in Sweden as well. President Trump busy keeping an eye on all of these situations overseas. What we saw in Sweden, relatively peaceful, safe country. Why would terrorists target Sweden?
I think you answered your own question.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind that the enemy becomes more desperate as they begin to lose terrain in Iraq and in Syria. They're going to try to demonstrate their global network. And what better way to do it than to pick world capitals that have not been touched by their level of terrorism that a lot of other countries have known. And so it would make perfect sense to me. The mode of attack is also, I mean, when you think about it, we've talked about it before, soft targets in a crowd.
Using trucks, using knives, different mode of something they can more easily get?
Listen, if the three of us were going for a cell and meet a number of times and acquire explosives, we run the risk of being detected, right? But if we're each operating independently and we use a truck, it's a cheap way, a cost-effective way of doing a lot of damage, of killing a significant number of people. In this case, thankfully, although it is a loss of life, the loss seems to be somewhat minimal.
All right. Lou Nescott.
Thank you
so much.
Always appreciate your perspective.
Appreciate
expertise.
You having me here.
Of course.